With over 6 billion people on the planet, there are so many things going on in the world today. Your reason for being here to view this video is very important. You are about to embark on a journey with this company that we hope will be mutually beneficial. We believe that you add something to our project that we are currently missing, and we need your help to accomplish our goals. Our goals include being safe on the job site and at home, producing a quality product we can be proud of, and treating other workers on the job site with respect and dignity. If what we are doing doesn't fit those three goals, the question needs to be asked, why are we doing it? This orientation is designed with you in mind. You can pause it, come back to it as you see fit. However, you will need to complete the orientation in its entirety before you'll be allowed site access to the job for API. This orientation is designed to give you a good understanding of our history, our successes as a company, what our expectations are of you, and what you should expect from us. Our main desire is that you go home each and every day, back to your loved ones, in the same manner in which you came to us. All 10 fingers, all 10 toes. No injuries, no incidents. The way we do this is we partner with you to recognize hazards and mitigate them in order to make our job sites a safer place. We partner with you because you deserve a place to work free from recognized hazards, where you can produce a quality product you can be proud of without the fear of being injured. So as you view this orientation, keep in mind our goals. Keep in mind that your job is to finish each and every day safe without injuries. Now sit back, relax, and get ready to learn.
Hi, I'm Huck, President of API Construction, and I want to thank you for choosing to join the API Construction team. What you're going to learn in the content that follows is that we are a 90-plus-year-old union specialty contractor, and we need your talent to help us continue to move to the future. As a business, it's our responsibility to provide resources that create the safest work environment. What you're about to watch is the first of those resources. What we ask is that you spend time and absorb the content, take it to heart, and use it as you move forward to work safely and productively. Again, thank you for joining API and enjoy the videos that follow.
Hello everybody and welcome to API Construction's new hire orientation. My name is Mike and I'll be taking you through your journey and helping you get better acquainted with the job that you're going to. So let's take a look at welcome in history. API Group traces its roots back to 1926 when it began as a business interest in a company by Reuben L. Anderson, the father of API Group owner and chairman Lee Anderson Sr. In 1948, it was incorporated as API Incorporated. Two products of this evolution are companies known today as API Distribution and API Construction. Lee graduated from the United States Military Academy at West Point in 1961, briefly serving in the military before returning to the Twin Cities to run his father's business, rising to the rank of president in 1964. Lee applied the leadership skills he learned at West Point to API Group, and by 1997, API Incorporated officially became API Group Incorporated. Since then, API Group has evolved into one of the largest specialty contractors in North America as a multi-billion-dollar parent company to more than 40 independently managed life safety, energy, specialty construction, and infrastructure companies in over 200 locations worldwide. Mr. Lee Anderson is the single most generous graduate in West Point history. End of story. No one has done more and no one has given more than Mr. Anderson. He began his term of service in the Army when he was commissioned in the Corps of Engineers and assigned to Luke Air Force Base in Phoenix, Arizona. He served 3 years on active duty and quickly achieved the rank of captain. Lee returned home to Minnesota and became a salesman at API, and his tireless efforts and vision for the organization quickly elevated him to the role of president within the company. Using his leadership abilities he learned in the military of loyalty, integrity, and hard work, Lee transformed API from a small business with 13 employees into a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. Here are some of the companies that are in the API Group family. You have API Construction, which is the oldest, ICI, Classic, Grugnot, Jamar, Jomax, and many, many, many others. API Construction was the first company created by API Group and is the oldest and most well-established company within the API Group family. API Construction has over 90 years of experience delivering quality work done safely and on time. You are now on the team of one of the largest specialty contractors in North America. We are a proud union company. We were the first, and we will be the best. API Senior's leadership team is driven to help you do your job, to help you do your job right, and to help to do your job safe. Huck Finn is our president. You'll hear from him later. Bob Miller is our vice president. Brian Thayer is our safety director. Dan McLemore is our controller. Russ Byers is our scaffold leader. Phil Herron is our vice president of operations. Ron Pruin is our senior site superintendent. And Casey Campbell is the director of business development. This entire team meets weekly. This entire team works with our people in the field. This entire team exists to ensure you can do your job well, do your job safely, and be productive at it. Now, we have a bright, strong future at API. In October of 2019, API Group was acquired by J2 Acquisitions. The new name of the company will be API Group Incorporated. The acquisition will allow for the company to be listed on the New York Stock Exchange as a publicly traded company and have access to capital that will help us all grow and thrive in this economy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to part one. So part one, we are going to be talking about the rules. Yes, the rules. There has to be rules. There has to be an understanding of what's going to be expected of you. The rules that we're going to be giving you today are the highlights of our rules. There are many other rules within the company. Like I said, these are just the highlights. The full and complete rules will be emailed to you so that you do have a copy of them. Now, when we talk about the rules, we don't want you guys to think that API is actually a militant organization where if you make a mistake, if you mess up, we're out to run you out, we're off to write you up, and we're off to out to get you, okay? However, we can't have a society with a bunch of free-loving hippies that we're just going to do whatever we feel. That isn't good, and it doesn't make for a successful company. So we have to have rules, and these are some of the rules that help us to be a strong company. Now, number one, all employees shall take their work direction or instruction from their supervisor. So either their foreman, their general foreman, or the superintendent is going to be in charge of what we call the plan of the day. They're going to be there saying, this is what we're going to do. I want you 4 guys to go here, you 5 guys to go there, and they're going to set the agenda and the work for the day. We don't want to take our direction from clients, vendors, or anybody else. If one of them does ask you, hey, can you do this for me? Very politely decline. Thank you very much. Let's go through my supervisor. They'll go ahead and give us a direction for that. And you don't have to be mean or ugly about it. Just say, hey, can you go talk to my foreman? He'll get you taken care of. I'm sure we can probably get that taken care of for you. No need to be rude or ugly in that. Employees shall not knowingly or willingly circumvent recognized safety standards, company policies, or client-specific policies. So we want to make sure that we are doing not only the best to abide by our rules, but our client rules as well. Knowingly or willingly circumventing different safety standards, different safety policies, for example, lockout, tagout, working with different valves and things like that nature, and deliberately, not using them is something that can get you not only hurt, but in a lot of trouble. So make sure we don't do that. Employees shall not falsify records, reports, facts, information, or engage in other purposeful acts to misrepresent an injury, accident, or property damage. When you mess up, fess up. And when you fess up, be truthful about it. Make sure that we have the ability to learn from any and all incidents so we can make sure that they don't happen again. But if you falsify records or reports or engage in other purposeful acts to misrepresent what's going on, we're not able to learn from them. And that's our goal. We want to learn and make sure that whatever happens, it doesn't happen again. Employees shall not possess firearms, ammunition, and weapons of any kind, illegal drugs, or alcohol on client or company property. Please leave your guns, your knives, your grenade launchers, your flamethrowers, your bazookas at the house. The workplace should not be a place where illegal drugs or alcohol are being brought, so please make sure that we don't have those sorts of issues. Employees are expected to return to work fit for duty. What does fit for duty mean? It means that you're ready to go. It means that your mind is clear, you're not overly fatigued, that you're not under the influence of drugs and alcohol, and that you are ready to go and take care of business. So we want you to arrive to work ready to go. Employees shall not remove company, client, or other employee's property without express permission. So if it's not yours, don't take it. If it's not yours, maybe ask, hey, can I use this for a minute? I need to do X, Y, and Z, and that person will either give you permission or they won't. Please don't leave the site with any of API's equipment. That's stealing. The client's equipment, that's stealing. If you don't have permission, don't take it. Employees shall not disrupt work progress activities, including things like fighting, horseplay, physical altercations, or intentional slowdowns. Employees shall not engage in violence, threats of harassment, or any kind of that stuff on company property. We want to make sure we treat each other with dignity and respect. Fighting, horseplay, even just the threat of that stuff is not going to be tolerated with API Construction. Employees shall not engage in any act of sabotage. Please, we work very hard to do the work that we do. Don't purposely sabotage something. That could get somebody, or yourself, or a supervisor, or a client, that could get somebody hurt, and we definitely do not want to do that. Now, employees shall not participate in gambling or solicitation of funds for gambling purposes. The problem with gambling is there is typically a winner and typically a loser. I am typically the loser. I am a horrible gambler. And that's not good for morale. That's not good for work. People tend to get upset and angry and mad. It's just not a good thing. We're about the business of doing business. We're not about the business of shooting dice and bringing cards. Employees are expected to be in their work area at the designated start time and prepared to embark on the day's activities. So when you do your site-specific orientation with the client, they will tell you work starts at this time. We do breaks at this time. We do lunch at this time. They will tell you what is going to be expected of you. Be in your work area, be ready to go, be ready to tackle the day. Each employee is expected to keep a tidy workplace that is free from clutter and excessive debris or material. Please clean as you go. We want to make sure that our work areas reflect the type of work that's being done. We're a very proud union company. We want to make sure that we're having those characteristics and that people can see by our work that we have pride in what we're doing. That's what separates us from everybody else out there. So cleaning as you go, keeping a tidy workspace is definitely going to help us in the long run to keep you safe, to keep people around you safe, and it just looks better. Employees shall use sanitation and hygiene facilities that have been designated for company use. Please make sure that if you don't have a porta-john, you don't have that sort of stuff near you, let your supervisor, let your safety professional, let somebody know so we can get that close to you so that you can use those things. It shouldn't be expected that you do something different. And we'll just leave it at that. Smoking will be in designated areas only. Please do not smoke outside of designated areas. That is the quickest way to get run off from a facility and to get terminated by API Construction. If you do need to smoke, that's fine. That's your right. We just want to make sure we do it in the appropriate area so that there isn't any issues and we don't run the risk of maybe blowing something or someone up. Work and coffee breaks shall take place and identified by local union agreements or job site requirements. So once again, in your site-specific orientation, they will tell you, we will be to work at 7, we will have a break at 9, we will have a lunch at 12, we will have another break at 3. There's lots of different job sites, so please make sure you're aware of that and only take those sort of breaks when they're identified and when they're appropriate. Employees shall remain in their respective work areas until a specified or specific quitting time. So don't go walking around, don't go looking at the job site, don't go exploring. We're there, we're about the business of doing business. Be in your work area, take care of your business until it's time to go. Employees are not allowed to take photographs or videos of clients' property unless they have gained the express consent of the client and have cleared it through their supervisor. Generally speaking, we don't want you to take videos, selfies, and things like that and put them on Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and those sort of things. Please make sure you're about the business of doing business. That means we don't have time to stop and smell the roses, get that perfect selfie so we look awesome to our friends and family. Keep your head down. Get your work done, and everything will be just fine. So once again, not allowed to videotape or photograph the client's property unless you have permission and there's a purpose for you of doing so. Now, when we talk about attendance, API Construction understands that days away from work are inevitable. So for over 90 years, we have employed human beings. Human beings oftentimes have issues. People get sick. Their loved ones get sick. Their child is sick. Their child may have a t-ball game, or there may be a vacation that you're going on. So we understand that life comes at you pretty fast. We understand that being away from work is an inevitability, but we do have a goal. Our goal is 95%. Our goal is 95% work attendance so that you can be here, take care of our client, ultimately who is paying all of our bills, and take care of them in such a way to make everybody proud. So when we talk about attendance, it's good to know some definitions. What is an unexcused absence? Basically, it's any person not reporting to work on a scheduled workday. So if you arrive late, if you leave early, that is going to be considered an unexcused absence. We want to make sure that we don't have too many of those. We need you there. We need you working. That's why you're here. Now, if you do call in, if there is something that happens, the best thing you can do is communicate. During your site-specific orientation, you will be given who to communicate to. I have been on some jobs where there are call-in numbers, where you call an 800 number and you leave a voicemail. You may need to call the general foreman or the superintendent. Please make sure that if you're going to arrive late, if you're going to be absent, if you're not going to be there, hey, my car didn't start. Hey, I got snowed in and there's 4 feet of snow and I can't get to the job site, or my kid's sick or I'm sick. Please make sure that you let somebody know that and communicate with them. All right. No call, no show. If you no call, no show for 3 consecutive days, that's considered job abandonment. Stuff happens. We understand. You got sick. You had the death of a loved one, God forbid. We just need to know about it. So an excused absence, if you do in advance, typically there's a calendar, typically there's a form, and you'll communicate with the superintendent. I need to be off for this day. I have a doctor's appointment. We have a vacation planned. All of that stuff. Generally speaking, if you do it a minimum of 7 days in advance, you're going to get that approved and you'll be able to take your time off, and it won't be no call, no show. It won't be unexcused. It will be excused. Now, if there is a sick day, I worked for a company at one point that said we had to notify them of our sick days. And I thought that was really weird. Like, well, I really wasn't planning on being sick. It just kind of hit me all of a sudden, right? So when we talk about sick days, they're going to be considered unexcused unless the worker has documentation from a licensed healthcare professional or institution stating that the worker has been under a physician's care for the time missed. So a good idea would be to go to your primary care physician, go to a doc in the box at a CVS or a Rite Aid or a Walgreens. They have those now, and they can help you get better. They can give you the medications and whatnot to fight off the infection or the cold or the flu or whatever you've got going on. And while you're there, get a note so that note can be given to the superintendent so that you can have that absence excused. Now, when we talk about other absences, things like jury duty, apprenticeship classes, military service, they'll all be excused as long as we have proper documentation. Why, if you're going to serve our country or you're going to do your civic duty as a juror and be a part of our criminal justice process, would we want to punish you for that? We need to know that it's coming up, and we just need documentation. Now, election days, this is your civic duty, and we take that very, very seriously. We want to give you 2 hours of excused work so that you can go and participate in the democratic process in your area or within the country if we're having a presidential election or whatnot. One of the things that I would recommend is getting with your superintendent. If there's a lot of people voting, we may say, hey, can you guys go at 10? Can you guys go at 2? Can you guys go at 4? And make sure that we can still function as a business, but you can still get the ability to do your civic duty. So once again, we do have excused time off for elections, jury duty, apprenticeship classes. We just need proper documentation and good communication. If you get nothing out of the attendance policy, I will say communication is key. Now, personal protective equipment. What do we have? We have the basics. We give hard hats, foam line glasses. With the foam line glasses, we also have a program within API for prescription foam line glasses. There is a financial allotment for that. You can go online and order them and they will be shipped to you. So ask your superintendent, your safety professional about that, and they can give you some more information on it. We do gloves, we do high-vis vests, work shirts with sleeves, work pants, and sturdy work boots. So we want to make sure that you're ready to go when you actually get to the job site and that you are protected. Now, as far as specialty PPE, right? There may be things that are very loud, generating a loud amount of noise. We may give you hearing protection. Depending on what the work scope may be, there may be respirators, Tyvek suits, or PAPRs involved. So we want to make sure that you're trained appropriately. If you're wearing a respirator, you need to have a medical form filled out and clearance by a doctor. We want to make sure you're trained how to troubleshoot them, how to clean them, how to take care of them. So when we do get a situation where you need specialty PPE, we will provide you more training, more guidance, and we'll go through the appropriate steps. Now, as far as injury reporting, it is mandatory. I cannot stress this enough. Mandatory, and our expectation is that all incidents and injuries will be reported immediately. Failure to report or attempting to hide an injury or incident will result in disciplinary action up to and including termination. So please, I said this before, when you mess up, fess up. Let us know. Don't get hurt on a Monday and come and tell us on Thursday, hey, I think I may have hurt my back. If you didn't report it to anybody, how do we know that we happened on the job site? How can we fully get it taken care of if we don't know that it happened? So please make sure that we're reporting things in a timely manner. Now, as far as drug and alcohol testing, all workers are subject to drug and alcohol testing, including pre-employment, reasonable suspicion, post-accident, random, and return to work. Any person who exhibits signs and symptoms of being impaired will be subject to testing and possible dismissal from the job site. So with pre-employment, everybody has to do a pre-employment drug and alcohol test before you come to work with us. Post-accident, so if you get hurt somebody else, or damage property, we're going to do a drug test. Reasonable suspicion. If you are exhibiting signs and symptoms of being impaired, your supervisor actually has a checklist and they've gone through classes to do it right, properly, and legally. So reasonable suspicion is what we do. Random. So randoms are truly random. We have very little to do with that. Your social security number is put into a computer. The computer randomly pulls numbers. It comes out. You get tested. And then we also have a return to work policy if you have tested positive for drugs in the past. Now, EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, people, bottom line, are our greatest asset. So according to federal law and company policy, we will not discriminate employers based on anything that is protected, such as your race, your color, your gender, your sexual preference, your national origin, or age. If you feel like you've been discriminated against, please speak to your supervisor, please speak to your steward or your safety professional. Bottom line is, API Construction has been in business over 90 years because we recognize that people are our greatest asset. So I don't care what you do at home. I don't care where you're from. I don't care if you're male, female. I don't care any of this stuff, disability, age, marital status, family status, all of this stuff. If you're going to be a part of our team and you're a quality person, you work hard and you're willing to learn, we want you on our team. So I'm going to read this. I have to read it legally to make sure that everybody's on the same page. But this is to affirm that API Construction's policy of providing equal employment opportunities to all employees and applicants for employment in accordance with applicable laws, directives, and regulations of federal, state, and local governing bodies or agencies. Our organization will not discriminate against or harass an employee or applicant for employment based on race, color, creed, religion, national origin, sex, sexual orientation, disability, age, marital status, family status, membership or activity in a local human rights commission, or status with regard to public assistance. We will take affirmative steps to ensure that all of our company's employment practices are free from discrimination. Such employment practices includes but are not limited to the following: hiring, upgrading, demotion, transfer, recruitment or recruiting, advertising, selection, layoff, disciplinary action, termination, rates of pay or other forms of compensation, or selection of training, including apprenticeship. We will provide reasonable accommodation to applicants and employees with disabilities whenever possible. I will say this again for a third time. People are our greatest asset. We don't care if you're red and yellow, black and white. We don't care if you're male or female. We don't care where you come from. We don't care where you've been. If you can do the job, let's do the job. We do it quality, we are productive, and we do it safe. You will always have a spot on our team. Now, the Americans with Disability Act makes it illegal for employers to discriminate against workers with disabilities. The worker, along with the medical professional, must define the disability to the employer, along with the request for accommodation. The employer can then make the decision if the request is reasonable. The employer will make every reasonable attempt to accommodate the worker's disability. So again, if you feel like you've been discriminated against, please speak to your supervisor, steward, or safety professional. So with our harassment policy and discipline policies, we want to make sure that we're treating people with respect and dignity. We don't want to harass people, whether it's sexual harassment or any other type of harassment. We don't expect everybody to go out on Sunday, have a beer with everybody, and be best friends. People are different. You may not like a person because they have an accent and they're from the north, or they're from the south, or they say they talk funny, or whatever the case may be. That doesn't mean that you have to be best friends with them. But we are going to treat each other with respect. We're going to treat each other with dignity and realize that everybody is different, and that's part of what makes us better as a team. Now, as far as discipline is concerned, discipline will be performed with the goal of learning and growing the person, and not to needlessly punish them for their mistakes. As we talked about earlier, this is not a militaristic, militant society where if you mess up, we're going to run you off. we have policies that make sure that we do things appropriately. We do things like verbal coaching, written warnings, suspension, and then termination. So life critical rule violations will warrant immediate termination. Our goal is to make sure that the punishment fits the rules that are broken. So if we do have discipline, we will write that all out. You will have the ability to talk about it with you, your steward, and your leadership. Like I said, we want to make sure that we're growing and not needlessly punishing people. Now, as far as our return to work policy, if you get hurt, our company has 3 goals. Number 1, we want to get you the best care possible and get you back to work 100%. We want to gather the facts and learn from the incident. We want to know what led to this so we can make sure it never happens again. And then we want to get the worker back to work with a comprehensive return to work plan. So we will work with the worker, we will work with the doctor. The person can't lift more than 10 pounds, 20 pounds. They can't be on their feet for more than X amount of hours. They need to have their shoulder in a sling. Whatever the case may be, we want to make sure that we put together that plan. The worker agrees with the plan, the doctor agrees with the plan, and we get that person back to 100%. Now, real life lessons learned. Please understand that in future sections, you're going to see this at the end. It's called real life lessons learned. We are not saying that these people are bad, these people are evil or stupid, or they don't know what they're doing, but these are real life things that have happened within our company that we are trying to put out there so that people can understand it and make sure they don't make the same mistakes. So the location was Connecticut. We had an installator that was working in a very tight area, and he had used his knife, the knife that we had given him, and he was cutting a piece of insulation. The installator then took his knife, put it in his back pocket in anticipation of using it in another few minutes for another cut. At the same time, another worker was passing by in that very tight area. The installator then stood up to allow more room for the worker to pass behind him, and then the knife lacerated the worker's thigh. So what did we learn from this? Knife sheaths are the single best way to avoid cuts and lacerations. Stop, end of sentence, do not pass go, do not collect $200. If the insulator would have put the knife back in its sheath, there would not have been this incident. The laceration on the worker was not very large, but it was actually very deep. And so that laceration required stitches, and it did make it an OSHA recordable. So we want to make sure that we learn and grow. We want to make sure that if we are using sharp implements, we're using knives and whatnot, that we put them in their sheath, especially when we're not using it, so that we can ensure that this doesn't happen again. All right, everybody, welcome to part 2. So let's get into part 2 and look at the different things that we do to start our day, different things we do to start off so that we can be successful. The first thing we do when we start off so that we can be successful is Stretch and Flex. So Stretch and Flex is basically a program that started almost 10 years ago with API Construction, and it's existed in 2 different forms. One was a form that we went to with the physical therapist, and the other one is a form that we went to with an actual medical doctor that has done a lot of work with the U.S. Olympic team and a lot of work with occupational folks. So the first thing we want to do is we want to start with our neck rotation. And let me just give a very broad disclaimer on this. Do the best you can with all that you have. If your neck is stiff because you had an injury, or your shoulder hurts because back in the 78 Super Bowl, you made a good block on the last play of the 4th quarter, and now your shoulder is messed up, don't do that stuff and injure yourself. Do it to the best you can. So neck rotation, stand tall, feet shoulder width apart. You're going to hear that for every single one. It's a part of good form and good stance. The number one thing that we want to make sure that we do is we stretch and hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then release. Stretch and hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. So whether it's doing your neck rotation, your shoulder stretches, we want to make sure we get a good stretch on that. And basically what we're allowing our muscles to do and our ligaments to do is to basically warm up. You're going to get increased blood flow, and you're going to get your shoulders, your neck, your body, your arms, your legs. You're going to get everything ready and properly heated up and warmed up so that you can go to work. So we got shoulder shrugs, we got your lower back extension. If I literally had a nickel for every time somebody had a lower back problem, I would probably have retired long ago, but you have your shoulder and neck stretch. Very, very important. Stand tall with your feet shoulder width apart. Grasp your left wrist with your right hand gently. Now, let me underline, exclamation, tattoo that on your forehead. Gently pull down your left arm as you lean and tilt your head to the right. You'll feel that stretch in your neck. You'll feel that stretch in your shoulder, and you'll be ready to go. So stretching your chest, your front shoulders, and your biceps, right? Doing what we call the Superman stretch. Very, very important. That kind of gets all those muscles ready to go. And then your hamstring stretch. I can tell you, if you are climbing up ladders, scaffolding, stairs, things like that, stretching those hamstrings is very important. Doing those forearm rotational stretches and wrist and forearm stretches when you're doing those fine motor movements, when you're cutting things and you're folding things and you're working with tiny screws and nails and such. Very, very important to have these ready to go. So, as you can see here, here's a good video of a job site that we have. And these are guys just going through. And notice, everybody is doing it the same, but just a little bit differently, in that if you have a neck issue, if you have a neck problem, obviously you don't want to do anything that would cause you any amount of pain. That's not the goal. So if you need to refine it a little bit so that you can continue to get that stretch, so that you can continue to, in a sense, wake up those muscles. I mean, look at the video of the people that are doing this right now. They're stretching out their necks, they're stretching out their shoulders, they're going forward, they're going backwards. But notice how when they breathe, you can see their breath in the air. This is the start of a shift. It's early in the morning and it is cold. You can see that people are bundled up. So now they're stretching their arms, making sure we're getting some blood flow to those arms. Make sure those muscles, the biceps, the shoulders, your triceps, everything is getting warmed up. Everything is getting loose so that we can prepare for the work that we're going to be doing throughout the day. So you see them right now, they're doing their shoulder stretches, they're holding it, they're doing a 4 count. All right, good to go. What's next? Oh, we're going to do your forearm stretches. So they got their arms out and they're rotating them down. Arms out, rotating them down. Then we're going to count. Arms out, rotating them down so that everybody's ready to go. And now they're going to go ahead and do the opposite. They're trying to get themselves warmed up, ready to go, so that when they get to their workstation, their muscles are acclimated, their ligaments are nice and stretched, so we're less likely to pull something, to have an injury, or to have something that could be damaging. So when we look at the start of our day, the second thing we want to do is our small group safety meeting. Very, very important when we talk about the small group safety meeting. We basically transitioned away from that old school mentality where we get sometimes 10, 20, 30, 40 guys together. It's a loud construction site. Let's all be honest with each other, okay? It's a loud construction site. Sometimes you just can't hear. You're in the back, you're still waking up, and there's one guy standing there trying to get everybody's attention. It just isn't very good. One of the reasons, and some of the main reasons why we chose to get away from this, is because we wanted better worker engagement. We wanted to identify leaders and we wanted to help them develop. And then we wanted to recognize the hazards that were actually in the job site and in the place that they're working in. So we do small group safety meetings. Optimally, we would like to have 4 to 6 people with a leader or a foreman, and they're going to go through their JSA, their start card, whatever their pre-job document is, and they're going to let everybody work through that as a group together, identify what the hazards are, what are the issues, what are our work steps, what is going on around us, and we want to engage. Here's what we expect from you. Engage. If you have a question, ask. The only stupid questions that will ever come out are the questions that you hold in and you don't ask. And then listen. Give your leader your attention and participate in what's going on. Take turns writing the JSA and other work documents. You don't have to have the level of foreman in your name or on your pay rate to actually write a good JSA. Some people don't have good handwriting. I can tell you the truth. I do not have very good handwriting. I do a lot of my business on email and typing because if it was relied upon me to write, people would never be able to read what I was writing because my handwriting is terrible. So if I'm a foreman and I know what's going on and I have the experience and I've been in the craft for a long time and I know what's going on, but as a foreman, I don't write very well. How do I communicate to the other workers on that JSA what we're doing. So my encouragement would be, maybe you don't have the best handwriting, maybe we find somebody else in the job, somebody else in your crew that can help you out with that and be a scribe. That actually will give them a job. That helps develop leadership, and it helps make sure that things are getting done properly. And with that JSA, that's the third, step to our day, is doing our pre-job documentation, doing our start card on some of the jobs we were on, doing the JSA on other jobs, getting together as a group, looking at what we do, because your job plan or your JSA, that's the single most important tool you have to keep you and your crew safe. Bottom line, you may have 4 or 5 guys in your group. Each guy's been in the craft several years. We have a lot of experience there. We have a lot of know-how. We need to be able to identify and communicate the hazards, what our work steps are, and how we're going to make sure that those hazards don't get us, that we don't have any injuries, that we don't have any incidents. So our expectation is that you contribute to the conversation. You have been places, you have seen things, you have done different tasks and different jobs. Let that experience come through and make sure you contribute. Number 2, never, ever, 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 ever put this on rewind and play it 75 times. Never sign a document you don't read or understand. If you don't know it, if you don't understand it, time out, I need to ask a question, okay? And make sure that you stop work and do a new JSA if your work task or your work environment changes. And we see that happen all the time. You start your day, you're going to be in this area, and then the client or the owner comes in the area and says, hey, sorry guys, we're going to do some hydro testing. We got to do this, we got to do that. We're going to have to barricade this area off. Okay, well now you're going to go to another area and do some work. We need to do a new JSA. We need to do another start card. We need to go through our process so that we can understand what are the hazards in this area and how can those hazards hurt me. So once again, contribute. Don't ever sign a document you don't read or understand, and stop work. Let's get another JSA done if our work tasks or our work environment changes. Now, real life lesson learned. Our location is Washington State. A worker on the job site was tasked with making what's called wire grenades. Wire grenades are utilized when installing blankets on site equipment. The worker was utilizing a drill to coil the wire. While doing this, the worker noticed that his glove got caught, and due to the friction of the drill, he sustained an injury to his finger. What was the lesson learned? Well, people would say he shouldn't put his finger there. Maybe he doesn't need to wear gloves because the gloves got caught up. We went through the entire hazard analysis, the process, the incident review, the whole 9 yards. And what we figured out, that PPE isn't always the best protection from a hazard. The incident investigation revealed that the task actually didn't need to be completed, and that wire grenades could be acquired from a vendor pre-coiled. So we took it from, not just better PPE or not just, doing different work steps. We didn't even really have to do it. We could order it from the manufacturer. It would come pre-coiled, and we wouldn't have those issues. So substitution and elimination are the best ways to protect our workers, because it doesn't even allow them to get put in a position where they could possibly get hurt. All right, part number 3. Part number 3 is going to encompass a lot of different tasks, a lot of different guidelines, and the first one we're going to start with is fall protection. Falls are the leading cause of death in the construction industry, bottom line. In order to protect workers from falls from heights, API has a comprehensive fall protection plan at each and every project we work on. Stop. End of sentence. Let's talk about this really quickly. Fall protection guidelines are just that. They're guidelines. They're things that we put in place, or things that we look at. We rely on you, the worker, to better understand the hazards of fall protection. So if you see something that doesn't make any sense, if you see something that doesn't look right, we need to have a conversation on that. We need your feedback. We cannot possibly anticipate every single situation that you may come in contact with, but if we both go out and look at this situation and create a plan, it is going to be infinitely safer than just going it alone. Remember, 2 heads are always better than 1. So our fall protection guidelines. Tool tethers must be utilized anytime a worker is working at heights. We had a situation several years ago where a worker was actually working, and a worker had his tools tethered above him. The tether was not secured properly. The tool broke, and it fell probably less than a foot away from one of our workers, and that could have been devastating. Tool tethering is a 2-part process, including the anchoring of the tool and the tether that is attached to the user. what we want to make sure that we understand is what our fall protection guidelines are. So the basics in fall protection: if you work 6 feet or more above grade, you must have some form of fall protection. Now, never work at heights without a plan. That's very, very important. Looking at all of your tools, what is holding your tools, what is holding your materials. Inspecting all your fall protection equipment each and every time you use it is very important. And ensuring that your chosen anchor point will hold even if you do have a fall. So asking yourself that question: hey, if I do fall, worst case scenario, is this going to take care of me? And then tether tools to ensure that if you accidentally drop them, they won't fall and hit people below. So as far as your harness, so inspect your harness each and every time you use it. And one of the things that I would like to stress to people in the field is your harness is either 100% on or it's 100% off. Don't walk around with your leg straps undone. Don't go to lunch with your fall protection harness on, your leg straps undone, and then you go and just do whatever you're going to do. Why? Because we're human beings and we make mistakes. So if you fail to put those leg straps on and you come back to work and you hook up and you go and you have a fall, guess what? You're going to slip right out of that particular harness. That does happen, and it's very, very sad because the person thinks that they're taken care of, but then ultimately they're not. So your harness is either 100% on or it's 100% taken off and hung up properly. When you do your inspection, you want to make sure you look for things like cuts, frays, discoloration, unusual wear or tearing, or metal warping or fatigue. Once again, if you take the time to inspect the items that save your life and you discover an issue, you need to stop work. Stop work. Get with your leader for a replacement. If you're going to trust this thing to save your life, please make sure you give it its proper inspection. Look at it. Take a few minutes to give it a good inspection to make sure, God forbid, if you have a fall, you want to make sure that you're taken care of. Now, anchor points. Each anchor point needs to be able to support a minimum of 5,000 pounds. Ask yourself this question: if I do fall, will this anchor point work? We talk about swing fall hazards. So you're working over here and your anchor point is 20 feet away to your right. What happens when you fall? Where you're going to swing 20 plus feet to your right and your momentum is not going to be able to stop. So you ask yourself, can this support me if I do have a fall? What will happen if I do have a fall? Will I hit something below me? Will I hit something to the side of me? Taking those what ifs is very, very important. And understanding that engineered horizontal lifelines typically can only hold about 2 workers max at a time, unless the system has been developed by an engineer to hold more. So in the pictures, you're going to see a person, he's actually anchored below his waist, okay? You have different sort of anchor straps that you can use, different self-retracting lifelines, and then you have a beam clamp there. So when we talk about tool tethers, very important. How do you use a tool tether? So this is Marquis. Marquis is one of our safety professionals. He's going through how to actually tool tether a knife, okay? So he wants to make sure that the knife fits in the actual sheath, and he's going to take some tool tape, and he's going to basically use that in order to help him put on the D-ring for that actual knife. So he's going to make sure that he has the proper D-ring depending on the size. They're rated half a pound, 1 pound, 2 pounds, 5 pounds, and so on and so forth. And basically he's going to pull that tape very, very tight around that D-ring. Now, depending on what the actual item is, depending on what sort of D-ring is being used, is going to make a difference as to how many wraps you're going to need on that particular piece of equipment. So notice he's going through and he's wrapping them around. I believe he's going to give this one 7 good wraps, okay? So he's going to go around with it, make sure that he's ready to go. He basically cuts it off, right? So boom, cuts it off. And now he's going to go ahead and make sure that that little lip is folded over, and then he's going to pull on it. And he's going to make sure that it's actually on there and that it's on there very well. He's going to basically use the actual tool tether right there, pull it back upon itself. Now he can take that and he can clip that anywhere he needs to, and he can make sure that his tool isn't going to drop. He can put it on his belt, he can put it on a rosette, however it needs to go. So when we talk about tool tethering, it's very important to understand this little diagram that I put here is very, very interesting. You look at the bottom, it's mass in pounds, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 22 pounds, and then you have drop feet in height, so 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, 30 foot, 300 foot. Look at how quickly you get from something that's relatively small, 2 to 3 pounds, and you drop it 25 to 30 feet. Somebody's going to get hurt. God forbid you drop it from something higher. That is ultimately going to be a fatality. So when you look at it, and nothing ever just falls flat. That's the biggest issue with a lot of these jobs that we work on, is when you drop something, and if it ever happens, you drop something, it's not going to drop just right down to the ground. It's usually going to hit something, bang off something, careen off of something, and it's going to change its trajectory, and it's going to change where it impacts. So make sure that we begin with the end in mind. I'm going to be working above grade. I need my fall harness. I need to ensure that my tools are taken care of, that they're tethered properly. Where am I going to tether all of these tools? How is that going to make sense for me to be not only safe, but productive? So when we talk about barricading, barricades are used when there is a potential for injury or you need to control access to other workers in the area. If you look at the actual picture on the left here, that is a aerial lift that's doing some work. They've barricaded the area off so people won't get into the mechanism of the actual piece of equipment, so that the boom can go over and move freely as need be, so people don't walk around it. Make sure that with the barricade tag, you fill in on all 4 sides of the area. Make sure you have the name of the person in charge, the particular hazard, so we have overhead work going on or whatnot, and then contact information, whether it's a cell phone, whether it's a channel. Hey, I'm on channel 32, contact Bob, whatever the case may be. We want to make sure that if somebody has an issue, if somebody needs to get around that barricade, through that barricade, or has a question about the barricade, they can be taken care of. A lot of times in our scaffolding division, we set up barricades specifically when we're demoing our scaffold locations. So we're going to take this, we're handing parts from person to person. Okay, we're going to set a barricade red area so that if God forbid we do drop something, it will fall to the ground and it won't hit somebody. Now, aerial and scissor lifts. Aerial and scissor lifts are tools that are incredibly useful on the job site. If you're putting up sheet metal, or if you're getting stuff from one level to the next, they are incredibly important. But when they're not used properly, they can be deadly. So it's important that only trained, authorized, and competent workers operate those lifts. And when we talk about the operation of their lifts, there are several things that we want to take into account. Number one, you need to inspect that lift each day before work activities commence. You need to fill out the inspection log. As with everything in this world, if you don't write it down, it didn't happen. You can swear up to me, up and down, hey, I did it, hey, I looked at this, I did this, I checked it out, I even checked the oil and the hydraulic fluid. Okay, but unfortunately, if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. There's nothing that I can do to help you with that. You need to fill out the aerial lift diagram on the rear of the unit. So generally speaking, on the rear of the unit, you are going to have a aerial lift diagram. That's the picture you see on the right. And it can either be a sticker, if it's a aerial lift that API owns, or it can be a magnetic piece of dry erase board is basically what it is, so that you can write on it daily. They want to know who's using it, what day is it, where are they using it, and then putting a diagram out there so that everybody can see very easily, this is where we are, this is where we're working. If you look and see on this particular diagram, there was actually 2 different aerial lifts working in the area, and they sketched it out to make sure everybody knew where the buildings were, where the other particular scaffold or the other particular aerial lift was, and where the work was going on. So we want to make sure we fill that out. We want to make sure we have a plan. That's what it's going to help you with. It'll make sure that you have a plan. And then never overload the basket with materials or people. Generally speaking, depending on the aerial lift, you'll have usually 2 people or 500 pounds, or depending on the lift, if it's more heavy duty, it may be 1,000 pounds. And a lot of that depends on how far you boom out, how far you boom in, and where you're working. So make sure you never overload them. Make sure you look at the stickers, make sure you look at the owner's manual, and have a basic understanding of what the weight limit is in the basket. Now, always wear fall protection in the basket. That is a no pass go, no collect $200. If you don't, that could be very, very serious. You want to make sure you have that fall protection. And then utilize a spotter when moving in tight locations or based on site requirements. So if you're going to an area and the wheels are turning, you should have a spotter with you. You should have somebody looking out for you. If you're going into an area and maybe maybe your wheels aren't moving, but it's a very tight area to maneuver in, please make sure that you have a spotter. Call somebody over, take just that extra 3 to 4 to 5 to even 10 minutes, and make sure that you have a spotter there. What would be worse? Okay, having somebody come over and, oh man, we wasted 10 minutes of their time, quote unquote, or not wasting that time, slamming into a building, or what's worse, hitting somebody because you can't see them and having somebody be seriously injured. Take the time, use a spotter. That will definitely help you out. Now, real life lesson learned. So this happened a little bit ago. The location, Pennsylvania. A worker was installing roof material and was anchored to a beam clamp at his feet. So that's very important, beam clamp at his feet. The worker lost his balance and fell on the roof deck below approximately 6 feet. The fall arrest system did not deploy. The worker was not seriously injured. Lesson learned. Areas with limited or unique fall hazards need to be evaluated before work activities commence. The worker's anchored location wasn't sufficient to arrest his fall. So when we're talking about here is he was anchored at his feet. He had anticipated that if he was going to have a fall, he would fall in a certain direction. Now, when he stood up to look at his work area on the day that he fell, he actually fell in the opposite direction. Once he fell the opposite direction, the beam clamp being by his foot and his fall protection being on him didn't actually engage because he fell the different direction. And he actually fell approximately 6 feet. And we were very, very fortunate that he did not get hurt and he wasn't seriously injured. But that's where the two heads are better than one technique comes in. If this area has a unique fall hazard, if this area is a new area that we're going to work in, we need to go ahead and get a look at that. Safety department, the supervision, the leadership needs to look at that and identify, hey, where are we going to be tying off to? What sort of, do we need a horizontal lifeline? How do we do that? What sort of beam clamps do we need? How are we going to get this taken care of? The more people that can work on that and get some real world solutions, the better off we're going to be. So we want to make sure that we look at the lessons learned from this. Collaborative efforts definitely can help to make sure people do not get hurt. Because at the end of the day, 2 heads are always better than 1, 3 heads are better than 2, and so on and so forth. All right, everybody, welcome to part 4. Part 4 is going to focus on things like HAZCOM, fire protection, and other concepts. So according to OSHA and API policies, you have the right to know the chemicals and substances that you are working with. You have the right to know so that you can, number 1, understand the dangers. So what are the dangers associated with this chemical? Number 2, you can understand how to safely handle the product. How do we handle the product safely, moving it from point A to point B, and make sure that it's done properly? And number 3, understand the best way to protect yourself. So what sort of PPE do I need? Do I need respiratory protection? Do I need the full spacesuit like the guys here on the left? Do I need, some sort of mask? What do I need to make sure that I can be taken care of and take care of this product effectively? Now, when we talk about the GHS stands for Global Harmonized System. It was formally adopted in 2015. It's a comprehensive way to classify chemicals shipped from the manufacturer. The pictograms are designed to give workers information about the hazards contained in the chemicals or substances. So this is going to be on packaging lists, packaging boxes, cardboard boxes, stickers, and whatnot that will tell you this came from the manufacturer. You look at the upper left-hand corner here, it's a health hazard, it's a picture of a body. You got the flame, which is next to that one. Flammable gases, liquids or solids. You got the exclamation mark. That is an irritant. It has dermal sensitizer, meaning that it could actually burn your skin, right? So what we want to do is we want to look at these, and this should cause us to ask questions. What is in here? How do I take care of it? And how do I take care of it properly so I don't get hurt? Another way, SDS sheets. So when you open up that particular box, you should have an SDS sheet with that particular chemical. Now, formerly we called them MSDS sheets, Material Safety Data Sheets. Now we're calling them just SDS, Safety Data Sheets. And what they are is a comprehensive set of 16 categories that are designed to give the worker the top to bottom understanding of the chemical or substance that they're working with. So back in the day with the MSDS sheets, there was no procedure that said you had to include this or that as far as the information is concerned. You basically had manufacturers that as long as they used Roman type, as long as they wrote it in English, That was all that they needed. So now you go back to the GHS standard and it says, no, there must be 16 different categories giving all manner of information on that particular chemical or substance so that people can know how to best protect themselves. So when I look at this 16 different categories, it's a little bit overwhelming. When I teach this class, when I teach GHS, when I teach HAZCOM, the full class, what I teach people to do is to take the following categories and look at them first. Now, please don't misunderstand me. I am not saying that the other categories are worthless or you don't need to look at them. We need to know number 10, the stability and reactivity. The number 11, the toxicological information. Number 9, physical and chemical properties. Those are all very important. But the first 4 that I always tell people to look at are the most important ones. Number 1 is the identification. What is this? I always tell people next to look at number 4, which is the first aid measure. What happens if I get this on me or in me? How can I be taken care of from a medical perspective? Then the next one is number 5, firefighting measures. If this starts on fire, how do I put it out? Do I use a regular fire extinguisher? Do I need to use a Purple K fire extinguisher or some sort of alkalonic base to actually put this out? How do I fight a fire with it? And then the next one I always tell people to look at is the exposure controls and personal protection, because this tells you, do I need gloves? What type of gloves do I need? Do I need to wear a splash suit or maybe some goggles to protect my eyes because this is a splash hazard? So like I said, all 16 of these categories are important. I always just coach people to look at these 4 first. What is it? Number 1. Number 4, what happens if I get it on me or in me or my buddy? Number 5, what happens if it starts on fire? And then number 8, the exposure controls and personal protection. How do I control this and how do I make sure I protect myself? So API has SDS sheets available in the office and online. So if you ever want to look at them, if you ever have a question, please get with your foreman, your supervisor, safety professional. We would be happy to walk you through this so we can all gain a better understanding and know how to protect ourselves. Now, the NFPA hazard diamond, this is typically on things that do not move. When you look at the grocery store, for example, generally speaking, when they sell propane tanks, it's in the front and it lets you know what the hazard is. So red is flammability, and you basically go 0 to 4. So a red 0 means that the product will not burn. Health hazard is blue. If it's a blue 0, it is normal. It's not something that'll hurt you, but if it's a blue 4, that means it's deadly. That's probably going to kill you, and it is going to hurt every second you're dying from it. You have instability hazards. Is it very stable? So that would be yellow, or sometimes it looks almost like an orange. So if you see that and it's a 4, that means it may detonate, meaning just a slight little interaction, slight bumping, slight jostling, and this particular thing may very well blow up or explode. And then you have white, which is specific hazards. And what I want to get across is this: when you look at the hazard diamond, you look at SDS sheets, you look at GHS, this is all designed so that you can look at it as a worker, you can look at it and think to yourself, maybe I need to ask a question about this. This product I'm about to open, let's go back here, has a flame on it, okay? And I look at the SDS sheet and it says it's polymolyethyl bad stuff, okay? I should probably get a question on that. And I look in the red and it says 4. That means it's highly flammable and it could hurt somebody. So I need to get some better guidance. Let's get this whole 2 heads are better than 1 concept going. Let's ask some more questions and let's make sure that we are doing this and doing it right. Now, when it comes to things like fire prevention, fire only needs 3 things. It needs oxygen, it needs heat, and fuel. Once you have that chemical reaction, you have fire. I like the picture on the left. It's a grill, grilling up. I love grilling during the summer and just, the smells that come with that and the good tasting food. You look at it's an F-14 Tomcat right in the middle. It's got its afterburners on. It's going somewhere and going somewhere quick, hopefully to protect somebody or to protect our American servicemen. But then you look at the picture on the left, and that's actually a picture of Paradise, California. They had a horrible wildfire that came through, uncontrolled fire that came through and just completely destroyed that community. So if fire is not used properly, if it's uncontrolled, it can kill people and it can destroy property. So some tips when we look at fire prevention. Once again, fire prevention is the key. We want to make sure we store flammable items in the proper flammable cabinet. We'll talk about that here in a minute. We want to keep our work area free and clear of trash and debris. Obviously, if there's a bunch of crap lying around and there's even a small spark, that fire can get uncontrollable pretty quick. We only want to smoke in designated areas and dispose of our cigarette butts properly. Flick a cigarette out into some dry, tender grass, you're going to have a fire very, very quickly. And then we want to use hot work forms when required so that we can best make sure we have everything looked at and taken care of. Do we have a fire extinguisher? Do we have fire watch? Have we made sure that our upper explosive limits and lower explosive limits are taken care of? So we want to make sure we're working very hard towards the prevention of fire. Now, when we look at fire classification, you have A, B, C, D, and K. A is basically wood, paper, textiles, or rubbish. A is stuff that will leave an ash, so A for ash. You have B, it's used on flammable liquids, oil, solvents, greases, things like that. What do we not want to use on a Class B fire? We do not want to use water. Trust me, if you use water on an oil or grease fire, you'll only do it once. Class C is electrical equipment. Best way to put out a Class C fire is to turn off the juice, right? Go to the breaker box, power the equipment down if you can, and it's safe to do so. Best way because it cuts off the actual fuel that you have. Class D is combustible metals, things like magnesium. When they get on fire, they're very, very difficult to control. And then Class K is kitchen fires. They're usually combustible cooking media, animal grease, fats, things like that have the ability to get away from us. So keep in mind when we talk about fire classifications, we want to match it to the proper extinguisher. And keep in mind that the average fire extinguisher will last approximately 1 second per pound of extinguisher. So that little 10-pound fire extinguisher you have is only going to give you about 10, maybe 12 seconds of extinguishing agent. You want to make sure that you have the ability to get away, get to an exit, get away from that fire should one start. So we want to make sure we match the anticipated fire type, and we must inspect those extinguishers every single month. Now, when it comes to extinguishers, never use a fire extinguisher if you haven't been trained to. Only use extinguishers on what's called small incipient fires. Incipient is just a smart word for small fires, the very beginning. And the number one thing you need to do if you see a fire is call for help. Call for help immediately. It's good to get people coming. It's good to get help on the way than have that fire burn out of control and you're still 4 or 5 minutes away from people getting there. Fire can take off and go very quickly. If you do have that extinguisher, you want to pull the pin, aim it at the base, squeeze, and then sweep it back and forth. Though people call that pass. So pull, aim, squeeze, sweep. And the bottom line, all of this stuff is insured. There is nothing worth your life. There is nothing worth you getting burned, you getting hurt, using that fire extinguisher to protect whatever it is. That stuff is insured. Let it burn. Do not risk your life for it. You are more valuable to us than anything else. Please don't put yourself in that sort of a predicament. Now, when we talk about flammable storage, all flammable items need to be stored in a flammable cabinet. And one of the things that you need to make sure of is that that cabinet is not overloaded. Generally speaking, they will come with a gallon capacity, 20 gallon, 30 gallon, 40 gallon, etc. Make sure that we know the capacity and that we're not storing so much chemicals in there that it defeats the purpose. Obviously, if it's 20 gallons and we got 30, 40 gallons of stuff in there, we're not going to have something that happens good if it starts on fire. It's way too much. It won't be able to contain it. Make sure you remove chemicals from the cardboard boxes they are shipped in. Don't just set the box in there. That box is paper. That box is flammable. That is not good. And ensure that cabinet is grounded if it is so equipped. Make sure that flammable storage cabinets should have a spill pallet underneath them. We want to make sure that we minimize any potential environmental impact should a spill occur. Now, we talk about respiratory use. If wearing a respirator is required on the job, you will need to be trained. You will need to be fit tested, and you need to be medically evaluated. So there is a form that OSHA has that we will have you fill out. That form will go to a doctor. The doctor will look at everything and give you the thumbs up or the thumbs down. You need to be fit tested. Obviously, if you have a large face, we don't want to give you a small mask and vice versa. And then we need to train you. How do you troubleshoot this? When do you wear it? When do you not wear it? How do you fix it? How do you clean it? How do you maintain it? So if you fall into this category, category, your supervisor will get with you and give you all the information you're needed, as well as that appropriate training. So tags. Let me tell you, tags, please make sure they are legible. Please make sure, for an example, that the scaffold tags are completed before you utilize the scaffold. We have had issues in the past where people just assume that the scaffold's been checked out. It's early in the morning. They get on and they start doing their work. And here's the deal. This is the terrible thing. There is not anything wrong with that piece of scaffolding. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing that would kill them, nothing that would hurt them, nothing that would be an issue. However, they failed to have the scaffold checked out before they got on it. That scaffold wasn't checked out by a competent person. This is a life-critical violation, and you could potentially be let go for that. So please make sure, slow down just a little bit, make sure that scaffold tag has been signed off, and you'll be good to go. When we talk about barrier tags, they need to be filled out properly and have the date, what is the hazard, and it needs to be on all sides of the barricade, generally speaking, all four sides, and it needs to have a contact name and number. So, I'm Mike. This is my phone number, or I'm on push to talk channel 4 or channel 16 or whatever the case may be, and this is the hazard. We're working above grade. We want to make sure we set up a barricade in case something is dropped. Now, environmental hazards. Life is impossible to predict. I will tell you, the older I get, I usually do two things in the morning. I wake up in the morning, I look at, my email to make sure nothing bad has happened overnight with our jobs, and then I look at the weather. I want to see, is it going to be rainy, snowy, windy? Is there a hurricane coming through? Do we have a high fire danger? Is it very, very windy? And, with that fire danger, fire could take off really quickly. Is there lightning and thunderstorms going to come through town? So when we talk about the weather, your specific site will give you guidance on what to do during severe weather. So when in doubt, stop work. When in doubt, ask. So we have had issues in the past where, hey, we're using a aerial lift, we've got a crane, and we're putting panels on a particular wall. Now, it may not be very windy in this area A or this area B, but if you go between these two buildings, it's almost like a funnel. It turns into almost a jet blast, right? So we want to make sure that we stop work, we have a better understanding, even if it's just for a couple of minutes, to understand which direction is the wind coming from. Does it look like we are going to have, I'll tell you this, we had a heck of a time several summers ago working on a job where there was scaffolding all around us. We needed to tent the scaffolding because we couldn't get the insulation wet for the particular piece of equipment we were working on. And we struggled with that. There were certain times when you would see, okay, it's going to start raining about 2 o'clock. We would have workers actually stop work and they would start getting things all buttoned up. They would start covering things to make sure that when the rain did come, we didn't have our work messed up because of it. Bottom line is, we want to make sure we get guidance. We want to make sure we stop work and ask. If you think that there is a potential for extreme weather, let's get together as a group and let's set a plan in place. Now, we do have policies as far as lightning. So lightning is that you're going to need to cab up when you see lightning, or lightning is within, usually it's 10 miles of your job site. We want to cab up, we want to get out of the weather there, and we want to wait 30 minutes. And that's 30 minutes from the last lightning strike. So if you have a lightning strike and then you're at the 26th minute and you see another one, the clock starts over. So please make sure you're getting with your site. They'll give you specific guidance on that. Now, we talk about spills. In the event of a spill, consider the following items. Make sure you always protect yourself, okay? Don't attempt to clean up anything unless you've been properly trained, you have the proper tools, and you have the right PPE. It does not make sense to work with some polymethyl bad stuff and you don't have a respirator and now you get a lung infection. It is just a slippery slope. We would rather have you protect yourself and then report that spill so that the properly trained people with the properly trained training and equipment can come in and take care of that. So alert your site management if you have spilled something or you come across a spill. Never assume you know the contents of the spill. Call in a professional help for spill cleanup. So, don't walk over to it, stick your thumb in it and taste it. Oh man, oh no, it's just diesel. It'll be all right. Let's clean it up. No, we never want to do that. We obviously want to make sure that if you don't know what it is, okay, get somebody in there who can figure out what it is, that it's trained to figure out who it is, and get it cleaned up. Report all spills no matter the size, and utilize spill pallets to minimize environmental impacts. That's a very, very big thing. If we do have the potential for that, a good investment would be that spill pallet to make sure that if something does leak, it is contained and it's a lot easier to take care of. Now, real life lesson learned. This is from Maryland. An API worker was working in an area when a pair of blue nippers fell around him from above. The nippers weighed, I think, 2 pounds. The nippers were set up to be tethered, but with no attachment to a suitable anchor point. Here's one of the lessons we learned from this. During the investigation, it was discovered that the carabiner on the tether was not dual locking, and that rollout was very possible even if the tool had been properly anchored. So 2 things. The tool wasn't properly anchored, even though it was tethered. So tethering your tools is very important. Anytime you work above grade, you have to have some way of tethering those tools so that they can make sure they don't fall. But tethering it is only half the process. You want to make sure that that tool is actually anchored properly and that you have the proper carabiner. The carabiner on the left that you see in the picture there has a small piece of metal in there that if you break that metal, it will actually lock itself open and it won't close properly. The carabiner on the right is the carabiners that you should be using on all API job sites. It is dual locking. You have to spin that gold part and then press it in, and that allows for the actual tether to come out. So we want to make sure that all of our tool tethers have dual locking capabilities on our API jobs. We want to make sure that we're anchoring our tools properly. It's not enough just to tether them. We want to make sure they're anchored. We were very fortunate that when those nippers fell, they didn't fall about 4 feet to the left, and it could have potentially seriously injured somebody. So make sure we have our tools tethered and make sure that they are anchored right. All right, Section 5, home stretch, just about done. API believes that everyone is a leader. Successfully leading yourself will qualify you to lead others. Some of the things that leaders do is they actively listen. Actively listening means you shut down your mind, you open your ears, and you actively listen to what the person is saying. You're not thinking of what you're saying, you're not thinking of what they're doing wrong or what you're doing right, but you're actively listening for those verbal clues so that you can better understand what's going on with that person, and therefore you can better help. They take responsibility. Leaders take responsibility. They have extreme ownership. They understand their roles and responsibilities and take ownership, especially when something goes wrong. Everybody likes to be celebrated when something goes right. Everybody wants to be the hero that's taken off the field on everybody's shoulders. Nobody wants to be the one that missed the field goal. People do things wrong. People make mistakes. We're all humans. Our company has 90 years of success and 90 years of failure. So own it when you're wrong and be committed to search for the right answers. The right answer is out there. We have lots of people in our company that represents hundreds and hundreds of years of experience doing this job and doing it in a quality way. So if we're searching for the right answers, those answers will be found. And then welcoming new ideas and suggestions. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, but if there's a better way to reinvent that wheel, a better way to put air in it or do something of that nature, we will certainly listen to new ideas and suggestions. People have been lots of different places, done lots of different things, and at the end of the day, we want to do it better, safer, and provide a more quality product for our people. Now, the I Am Safety program is a program that's designed to be a partnership between the workers and API. Identifying hazards and safe work practices on the job are key to a successful project. Workers are asked to submit 2 cards a week. We can then track those issues and help make the job a safer place. So what we're asking you to do, and this is completely voluntary, is to submit 2 cards a week. You see the cards there on your screen. You can also submit them on our website, iamsafetyapi.com. And what we want to know is what's going right. Oftentimes that's missed. We're always looking for the bad stuff, the hazards, the things that people do that are wrong. But in this observation program, we want to know what's going right. And we also want to know what's going wrong. We want to know what we can do with what you're seeing to make your job more safe. We want to know what hazards you're dealing with so we can partner with you to make a successful project. A successful project, in our definition, is when nobody gets hurt, we produce quality work for our workers and our clients, and we do the job on time. This program helps us to do that. Now, workers can submit cards on their jobs or submit them digitally using the website www.iamsafetyapi.com. Workers who meet the minimum requirements will get API swag and their name in a monthly reward drawing. The main goal is to partner together for a safe worksite. We have made a decision as a company. Where would we rather spend our money? Would we rather spend our money on the potential of people getting hurt, first aids, workers' comp, lost time? Or would we rather channel that into rewards for workers that partner with us, that take an active role in their safety, take an active role in what's going on in their job site, submit the cards, help us to see, keep their eyes open for those hazards? If we can do that, that is definitely money well spent. Now, what are your next right steps? So this is the 5th part of this particular training. What are you going to be doing next? Well, the next thing to do is get ready to go to work. Show up for work at the job site at the agreed upon time. Your site leader will reach out to you and tell you when and where you need to go. And make sure you bring your government-issued ID and your secondary form of ID. We need to fill out your W-4, your I-9, and we need to fill out your check stub so we can get you paid. So bring a voided check for direct deposit, and then be ready to wear the appropriate work clothing as outlined in Section 1. Bring your tools for work and be ready for that drug and alcohol test. We thank you for completing this training. We want to welcome you to our team. We have a special welcome from our president, Huck Finn. Here's Huck.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Why do we ask every API Construction employee to invest their time to watch this video? Because number one, you have intrinsic value. You matter. You deserve to work in an environment that is safe. API Construction has thrived for 90 years because we place our value in people. Number two, we ask you to take responsibility to make our safety environment stronger. We're not perfect, we never will be, but we're always constantly improving, and we ask you to do the same. And number three, everybody watching this video has at least somebody who cares about them. I have a wife and 4 small children at home. They deserve a husband and a father to come home in the same shape that I left the house in. So again, thank you for taking your time to invest in API Construction. Have a safe day.